हम लोग स्टूडियो से लाइव जा रहे हैं। हम लोग लाइव जा रहे हैं।
ये लाइट बंद कर देगी?
हम लोग लाइव,
हमारा लाइट आया,
हम लोग लाइव आ गए हैं सर।
हम लाइट को बंद कर देंगे?
नहीं 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 नहीं, सब ठीक है सर, सब ठीक है, वो लाइव हो रहा है सर।
आप ठीक,
सब ठीक है, सब ठीक है।
ठीक है, ठीक है।
आप ठीक,
तो अभी शुरू करें क्या?
हाँ, शुरू कर रहे हैं सर।
जी,
बहुत धन्यवाद। तो पहले आइडेंटिफाई करिए, मायंक कौन है?
मैं शुरू कर रहा हूँ
मायंक
सर।
कौन है? तो मायंक है, ठीक है। अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, बहुत अच्छा। और आप, नेक्स्ट टू यू, आप कौन है? आप बताइए, आइडेंटिफाई करिए। हाँ, आपका माइक नहीं है ऑन।
मैं डॉक्टर अनंत आशुतोष द्विवेदी सर।
अच्छा, बहुत धन्यवाद। तुम?
मैं हूँ सर डॉक्टर अनंत आशुतोष द्विवेदी।
नेक्स्ट यू।
नमस्ते सर, मैं प्रज्ञा घोष।
अच्छा, और हम तो पीछे को पता है, और कोई है? हाँ, इधर है। आप कौन है? इनको बताओ।
नमस्ते, कोराड़ सुब्रमण्यम।
नाम से बताइएगा।
सुब्रमण्यम साहब।
कोराड़ सुब्रमण्यम।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा। तो अभी शुरू कर रहा है ना?
जी, हम शुरू करते हैं। गुरुर ब्रह्मा गुरुर विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात परम ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। आज के इस कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करते हुए सर्वप्रथम मैं सुश्री प्रज्ञा घोष से सरस्वती वंदना करने का आग्रह करता हूं। प्रज्ञा।
नमस्कार। या कुंदेन्दु तुषार हार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणा वरदंड मंडितकरा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शंकर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा शुक्लां ब्रह्म विचारसार परमाम् आद्यां जगद्वापिनीं वीणा पुस्तकधारिणीमभयदां जाड्यान्धकारापहाम् हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधतीं पद्मासने संस्थितां वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीं बुद्धिप्रदां शारदां बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद प्रज्ञा आपका। जिस पुण्य अवसर पर आज हम सभी एकत्र हुए हैं वह अवसर है पूज्य गुरुजी महामहोपाध्याय प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य के जन्म दिवस पर आयोजित स्मारक व्याख्यानमाला का चतुर्थ पुष्प। इस शुभ अवसर पर मैं अपनी ओर से, आप सभी की ओर से पूज्य गुरुजी को कोटि कोटि प्रणाम निवेदित करता हूँ। हमारा सौभाग्य है कि हमारे साथ पूज्य माता जी एवं उनके पुत्र श्री सत्येंद्र भट्टाचार्य, श्री योगेंद्र भट्टाचार्य एवं श्री अतीन्द्र भट्टाचार्य जी एवं परिवार के सभी सदस्यगण इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़े हुए हैं। काशी प्राचीन काल से ही भारतीय विद्या का एक प्रमुख केंद्र रहा है। प्राचीन काल से लेकर अद्यतन काशी में ऐसे कई आचार्य हुए हैं जो अपने प्रातिभ प्रकर्ष से अधीत विद्या में नैपुण्य एवं वैचक्षण्य को प्राप्त हुए हैं। ऐसे आचार्यों की एक लंबी श्रृंखला काशी में प्राप्त होती है। इस श्रृंखला में पूज्य गुरु जी का अन्यतम स्थान है। गुरु जी के पिताजी का नाम पंडित ताराचरण भट्टाचार्य था, जो साहित्य शास्त्र के अद्भुत विद्वान थे। उनके ज्येष्ठ तात महामहोपाध्याय वामाचरण भट्टाचार्य जो नव्य न्याय के दुर्धर्ष विद्वान थे। अग्रज भ्राता के रूप में प्रोफेसर विभूति भूषण भट्टाचार्य जो न्याय शास्त्र के विद्वान थे। इन चार आचार्यों को यदि हम काशी का रत्न चतुष्टय कहें तो कोई अतिशयोक्ति नहीं होगी। पूज्य गुरुजी साहित्य व साहित्य शास्त्र के मूर्धन्य आचार्य थे। नाट्य विद्या के सैद्धांतिक व प्रायोगिक पक्ष के महनीय आचार्य थे। उन्होंने अनेक नाटकों में प्रतिभागिता की, साथ ही साथ उनका निर्देशन भी किया। 1957 में इवोल्यूशन ऑफ ड्रामेटिक टेक्निक इन द लाइट ऑफ द हिस्ट्री ऑफ संस्कृत ड्रामा अप टू द 1200 एडी, इस विषय पर प्रोफेसर सूर्यकांत के निर्देशन में उन्होंने अपना पीएचडी किया था। उन्होंने अपना अध्यापन कार्य सागर के हरि सिंह गौर विश्वविद्यालय के संस्कृत विभाग से प्रारंभ किया। बाद में काशी हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय के कला संकाय के संस्कृत विभाग में अध्यापन करते हुए अपना एक विलक्षण स्थान बनाया। उनका आकर्षक व्यक्तित्व, उन्मुक्त हाके, चिंतन में मौलिकता, शिक्षा में मूल्य व राष्ट्रहित की चिंता आदि गुण उनमें विशिष्टता का आधान करते थे। ऐसे साहित्य विद्या, नाट्य विद्या के पूजक आचार्य का शिष्य होना गर्व की बात है। श्रावण मास की आज तृतीया तिथि अर्थात 19 अगस्त को उनका जन्म दिवस है। उनका स्मरण करना हमारा पुण्यतम कर्तव्य है। आज का व्याख्यान पूज्य गुरु जी की स्मृति में आयोजित होने वाले स्मारक व्याख्यानमाला का चतुर्थ पुष्प है। महान आचार्यों की लोक यात्रा लोक शिक्षा के लिए होती है। पूज्य गुरु जी तपोबल विशिष्ट मनीषी थे। उनका जीवन घट से हम सभी प्रेरित होते आए हैं। इसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए आज के व्याख्यान का शीर्षक है प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य, द मैन एंड द स्कॉलर। हमारा सौभाग्य है कि आज के इस व्याख्यान में हमें जिन दो आचार्यों को सुनने का सौभाग्य प्राप्त हो रहा है, उनकी चिंतन व मौलिकता से हम सभी परिचित हैं। भारतीय विद्या के आप दोनों स्तंभ हैं, पूजक आचार्य हैं। कार्यक्रम की अध्यक्षता प्रोफेसर कोराड़ा सुब्रमण्यम जी कर रहे हैं, जो संप्रति इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी हैदराबाद में एडजंक्ट प्रोफेसर के रूप में कार्यरत हैं। इसके पूर्व वो हैदराबाद विश्वविद्यालय में सेंटर फॉर अप्लाइड लिंग्विस्टिक एंड ट्रांसलेशन स्टडीज में प्रोफेसर के रूप में अपनी सेवा दे चुके हैं। आप व्याकरण विद्या, भाषा दर्शन, भारतीय आलोचना शास्त्र, वेद वेदांग के महनीय आचार्य हैं। सर, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। वक्ता के रूप में हमारे साथ हैं प्रोफेसर प्रद्योत कुमार मुखोपाध्याय जी, जो जादवपुर विश्वविद्यालय के दर्शन विभाग में भूतपूर्व अध्यक्ष रहे हैं। दर्शन विद्या के आप निष्णात आचार्य हैं, न्याय शास्त्र के अद्भुत आचार्य हैं। सर, आपका भी बहुत बहुत स्वागत। और हमारे साथ हेरिटेज सोसाइटी के महानिदेशक श्री अनंत आशुतोष द्विवेदी जी जुड़े हैं। मैं सर्वप्रथम निवेदन करता हूं अनंत आशुतोष द्विवेदी जी से कि आज का अपना स्वागत वक्तव्य दें। अनंत जी। अनंत जी, आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी जी, आवाज आ रही है।
मैं निवेदन करता हूं कि आज के अपने सारस्वत अतिथियों का स्वागत के लिए आपसे।
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद डॉक्टर मयंक साहब। एहि सूर्य सहस्रांशो तेजो राशि जगतपते अनुकंपये माम भक्ताम गृहानार्घम दिवाकर। आज यह बहुत सौभाग्य की बात है कि महामहोपाध्याय प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य जी की स्मृति व्याख्यान माला में हेरिटेज सोसाइटी को यह एक मौका मिला है। आप सभी जानते हैं कि इससे पहले भी हम लोगों ने यह व्याख्यान माला इनकी अवसर पर अलग हम लोगों ने आयोजित किया था। आज के इस आयोजन में उपस्थित समस्त सम्मानित अतिथियों, आभासी दर्शक दीर्घा के तमाम दर्शकों, मीडिया बंधुओं, आप सभी का स्वागत करता हूं, अभिनंदन करता हूं। आज का यह व्याख्यान हेरिटेज सोसाइटी के यूट्यूब चैनल पर भी प्रसारित है। हेरिटेज सोसाइटी के लाखों फॉलोअर्स देश दुनिया में इस आयोजन को देख रहे हैं। उन सभी से आग्रह करता हूं कि आज के इस आयोजन को महामहोपाध्याय प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य जी की योगदानों को जनमानस पे विश्व स्तर पर हम लोग लेके जाएं और उनके योगदानों को हम लोग जन जन तक पहुंचाने का काम करें। आप लोगों से आग्रह है कि आज के इस आयोजन को अपने तमाम लोगों में साझा करें और उनके योगदानों को सभी को बताने का कार्य करें। जैसा डॉक्टर मयंक शेखर साहब ने बताया कि आज के हमारे मुख्य अतिथि महोदय आज की अध्यक्षता कर रहे हैं और महामहोपाध्याय प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य जी के परिवार से जुड़े हुए तमाम सदस्यों को मैं सादर वंदन करता हूं, अभिनंदन करता हूं। साथ ही साथ आज के कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए आज के सत्र के संचालन महोदय डॉक्टर मयंक शेखर साहब से आग्रह करता हूं।
जी जी, धन्यवाद आनंद जी। अब मैं बिना किसी विलंब के
स्वागत है
आज के अपने विशिष्ट वक्ता आदरणीय प्रोफेसर प्रद्योत कुमार मुखोपाध्याय जी से अपना व्याख्यान उद्बोधन देने का मैं निवेदन करता हूं। सर, आप सर अपना व्याख्यान दें सर।
शिव समारंभान शंकराचार्य मध्यमान् श्री गोपीनाथ पादान्तां वंदे गुरु परंपरा आशांग विहाय बलिहृत परस्य निन्दां पापे रुतिं सुनिवाच्य मनश्च माधु आदाय हृत कमल बुद्ध गतं परेशं वाराणसी पुरपतिं भज विश्वनाथं धीराकुशग्रमतयो भवत प्रणम्य मौलौ निधाय करवारि गृहे समीहे वाणीयं विशृङ्खलाप्यस्त्रहितापि अनुग्रहेण हृदयेन विलोकनीया। हमारा ये जानकारी नहीं है, हमको हिंदी में बोलना होगा कि इंग्लिश में बोलना होगा? जो कोई भाषा में बोल सकता हमने?
हाँ सर, इंग्लिश में बोल सकते हैं सर।
ओके, बस। सो I would first like to thank Mayank for two reasons. One, when he contacted me, I did not know him personally before, but when he contacted me, I was very hesitant to deliver a lecture because I did not know him, nor why he is organizing it, on behalf of whom it is being organized. Nothing of it I used to know. But one thing I considered above everything, and it is his reverence to his Guruji, Professor Bishwanath Bhattacharya. I have seen another example of reverence for Vishwanath Bhattacharya on the day of his death. At that time, having heard that he is no more, I visited his house. His body was lying on the bed, and Reva Prasad Dwivedi ji came. I and Reva Prasad Dwivedi ji were talking to each other about Vishwanath ji. At one point of time, Reva Prasad Dwivedi ji touched the feet of the body, and I was so moved to see his admiration and respect for Vishwanath Bhattacharya. This is an example of how great one's respect can be for his teacher and scholar like Vishwanath Bhattacharya. But when Mayank impressed me by sharing only this information, that he uses or he organizes every year one lecture in memory of his teacher Vishwanath ji, I was really moved. And this is the only reason why I accept the invitation on a very short notice. Until then, I have not got any further information about this thing. But at that time, I told him I can speak on Professor Vishwanath Bhattacharya, a scholar and a man. Why I wanted to speak of both of them, scholar and man? Not because I know much about this scholar, nor do I know much about this man. My knowledge of Professor Vishwanath Bhattacharya, both as a man and a scholar, are limited. That is one of the reasons why I wanted to speak on both man and scholar, because whatever the loss of in quantity in respect of one of this feature of this Vishwanath Bhattacharya, the other feature will compensate for it. But it is the simple reason, but there was a better reason. And better reason tells a lot about the person Vishwanath Bhattacharya. I came to know Vishwanath Bhattacharya much late, I told you, but since I have been in close touch with him, I saw and was impressed by one thing, that in Vishwanath Bhattacharya's personality, the man and the scholar were not two different things. They were so mingled up together, it is very difficult to distinguish one from the other. This is the great achievement in the life of a scholar. Very few scholars are there which can or who can really amalgamate the two aspects of his life so close together that he can switch over from a scholar to a person and a person to a scholar. This shows how scholarship was with him so easy a part of his life. It is not like the scholarship of many of us who enter into the academic institutions as a scholar and live it as a person. We are resident of two completely different worlds. It was not the case with the real scholar, whose life is such that his scholarship and his being are intimately connected together, and this actually shows what an ideal scholar should be. His life and scholarship should be so mixed together that you cannot differentiate one from the other, is one thing. And the other thing is this, that everything he does bears a stamp of scholarship, and every scholarly act he performs bears the stamp of the person he is. This is the very, very great achievement of his life, which may be uh, uh, which we may be missing often. This is the reason why I wanted to speak about the man and also the scholar. But otherwise, I know extremely little about Vishwanath Bhattacharya in both of these aspects. I came to know Vishwanath Bhattacharya much late in my life. It was around 2003 or 4. Between 2 and 3, I first came to meet him personally. But before I met him personally, in the Bongo Samaj library, I knew quite some things about their family. Not only it was a family of greats, Mamachan Bhattacharya, but also whom I have never met. But I met Munibhushan Bhattacharya, who was not only a great Nayayiko, but who was also a scholar and great scholar of Hindu mathematics. In this capacity of his being a scholar of Hindu mathematics, really attracted me to him. I visited their house much before I visited Vishwanath Bhattacharya, who was not perhaps living at that time there. And I also invited Munibhushan Acharya and Bhattacharya to Calcutta to deliver lectures in 2-3 places. One of these was Asiatic Society, another of these was Science Faculty of Jadavpur University, and also Philosophy Department of Jadavpur University. In this connection, I visited the house many times, and I was very closely known to them. Even after Munibhushanji's death, I visited the house and met his widow. At that time, I came to know also about Taracharan Bhattacharya. But anyway, when I came to meet Vishwanathji, then within a very short time, we became so close together. I was in great admiration of his personality. What features of his personality attracted me most, I tell you. The time is very little, only two aspects I will tell, which actually drew me nearer to him. one aspect in which we two are greatly different. Our vision, our views were completely different. There was some respect. And this very much attracted me also to him. The other thing that attracted me to him was an aspect of his personality in which we two are very close together. What are these two different things? I'll tell you. But so far as the scholarship is concerned, I know very little because accepting formally when he gifted me a volume of his Kabba Prakash which he had edited, I did not read much about his published works, but much of my knowledge about his personality, his academic excellences, through personal contact and constant discussion with him. Often I used to go with him to the library and we used to come back from his library to his place. During these occasions, Viswanath Bhattacharya greatly involved me in much of his works in which he was engaged at that time. And gradually I studied the man very closely and I wanted to find out what were the abiding concern and interest of Professor Bishwanath Bhattacharya. In my way, I found it that there are two great concerns of Vishwanath Bhattacharya. One was, I would say, how to say it? One was Banga, that is Bengal, and the other was what we call Sahitya. Banga and Sahitya both were his constant concern, and he wanted to live more of his life in his later days thinking and working, not only thinking but working for each of these two. In this connection, I have to tell you one thing, that it is this concern of him that led him to involve me in each of these two concerns. How he did it was, he first made me involved in the Bango Sahitya Samaj, and then he involved me when he published a new journal of Bango Sahitya. He involved me officially as a writer, and whenever he would ask me to write something, even sometimes he would even tell me to write in a specific subject, I could not tell him no. And I knew that quite something I write might not have been up to his mark or up to his taste, but he never hesitated to accept that. This is one side. And at that time, I came to know of these two concerns. And of these two concerns, he expressed his position in one of the chief editorial writings of one issue of this journal. Two things he wrote there. One was, his concern was, what he wrote there, that this Sahitya Samaj Putrika or Banga Sahitya Putrika was an Adarshvadi Putrika. This was at the same time deeply disturbing, alarming, and startling. It is coming from a person who is a great scholar of Sahitya. For any student of Sahitya or very great scholar of Sahitya to say that he is in favor of Adarshavadi Sahitya and has launched a journal or magazine for it. It is a news. Why it is? Those who are students of Sahitya and scholars of Sahitya should know that both in India and outside India, there is a great concern and issue among the scholars of Sahitya as also the creative artists, whether the norms, whether political or ethical, should curb the independence and freedom of Sahitya. The great issue was the independence of literature, independence of Sahitya, which is always uh, very much against the principle of any any norm outside the Sahitya should curb its freedom. This is called, in one way, whether this issue is also sometimes called the issue of art and morality. Whether morality should have any influence on Sahitya, any power on Sahitya to restrict the freedom of Sahitya. This agitation, this issue, this concern was also known as the concern for art for the sake of art. In Britain, the greatest proponent of art for the sake of art was Oscar Wilde. And in our country also, in the 19th century and 20th century, great debate was there how much or what should be the exact relationship or power distribution between art and morality. And there is a great division in this matter between Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay and Rabindranath Tagore. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay was Adarshavadi Sahitya. His advice to the new writers of Sahitya was this: if you cannot do any good to your country by doing Sahitya, then better don't do it. যদি সাহিত্য রচনা করিয়া দেশের কোনো উপকার করিতে সাধন করিতে না পারো তাহলে সাহিত্য বর্জন করো। This was the motto and advice of Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. This is completely against the spirit that art should be completely free from any sort of restrictions, norms or adarsha. Rabindranath Tagore was of the opposite of it, and he used to propagate the independence of Sahitya. And it was one of the point of great debate between Sarath Chandra Chattopadhyay and Rabindranath Tagore. I will not, I hope that people know all these things. I will not spend much time on it, but there is one aspect which was really greatly influenced me and also startled me. My stand, I expressed with him, on the whole, my stand was with him. That yes, lived in completely dissociating art from the values of life, whether that is moral value or ethical value or social value. I knew, I believe it, that these two should go always together. So that way, I was very much in line with him. But I have a different reason for it. And the reason was this: those who believe that freedom of art does not have any place of ethical, social, political, or any values or norms, then they are really confused. We admit the freedom, the value of freedom of art with money, but we are not for giving undisputed and unhindered freedom to the artist. Art is free, but not the artist. Artist is a social man and he lives in a society. This will be very clear for the scholars of art that in the Vaishnava literature, they have their new theory of Alankar. They have their Alankar Shastra, and the most important work in the Vaishnava literature of the Alankar Shastra is Ujjala Nilomani. Now, there is a great controversy and inquisitiveness for whom this particular book was written. It was not for the sannyasis, it was not for the artist, it was not for the grihasthas, it was not for the social man. For whom then it was written? I had an occasion, someone in Varanasi, she edited Ujjala Nilmani and translated it a few years back. And she raised this question to me. Actually, I communicated this question, which has been raised by many people, and asked me my opinion. I gave him in writing what should be the way of viewing this Ujjala Nilmani. Anyway, this is one aspect of Vishwanath Bhattacharya's life and personality. Is concerned about Sahitya, and at the same time, in his Sahitya, he was different from those who are believers in or advocates of the complete freedom of Sahitya, as he has expressed himself in clear words that the Sahitya should be, his magazine should be Adarshavadi Sahitya. Though it is a very, very controversial and most unexpected assertion of a person who has spent his life in Sahitya and Alankar Shastra. The other aspect or other concern of his was the Banga. Perhaps because he perhaps was born and brought up and lived outside Bengal, and he was a great admiration of the Bengali literature. He was very much close to Bengal through Bengali literature. And because of this, he wanted to show and feel and achieve that Bengal Sahitya is very great and is so great, so comprehensive that Bengal to be great, Bengal to be great in the eyes of the whole culture of the world and outside, that is to be achieved in Sahitya. That is, through Sahitya, we can achieve the greatness of Bengal and its superiority in every sphere of the culture. These were the two great achievements which people who are not very, very closely studied Viswanath Bhattacharya miss them. I have found very few persons who have very deeply understood these two aspects or even noted them. In this connection, I think these are not unrelated, in my opinion, that he was trained and brought up in a particular tradition of Sanskrit. In our country, for many years, at least from the second half of the 19th century, there are two parallel traditions of Sanskrit learning. As such, whether it is philosophy, darshan, or it is Sahitya, or it is Shastra, everywhere there are two parallel traditions. One tradition was the tradition of Sanskrit literature, including the Natya Shastra, in the formal institute of education called Sanskrit Department of Colleges and Universities. This is one stream. The study and research in Sanskrit or Sanskrit literature in the formal institutes of education called Sanskrit Department. The other tradition was the original mainstream edition one time, which were there much before this new education system was inaugurated during the British rule, and that was the study of Sanskrit, Sanskrit literature and every department of it in Chatuspatis or tolls. These are even today, these two are there. So Sanskrit has now become, on the one hand, a subject of which the custodian are Sanskrit departments of colleges and universities, and the other where the custodians are the pundits of the tolls and chatuspatis. Obviously, for various reasons, I have no time to say all these things. Obviously, when this two stream parallel stream started, then as the day passed, the original indigenous toll system became weaker and weaker, and this department, I mean Sanskrit departments, they become more powerful and more powerful and more powerful. They too never got integrated. A few days back, I was delivering a lecture in IGNCA, and in that lecture, the subject I chose was Sanskrito, Sanskriti, and Kashi. This was the subject of my speech. At the end, I told them that look at BHU. BHU was meant to integrate these two systems. In BHU, there is Sanskrit department, but side by side there is another faculty, Sanskrito Vidya and Dharma Vigyan Sankar. If you have ever really studied the scholars and their way of teaching in these two departments of Sanskrit and the departments of SBDV, you might have noticed the difference between them. In short, I would say that these Sanskrit department scholars are of a modern mentality. Their modernity was much more ingrained in him, and in the Chatuspatis, etc., there was the classicism or conservatism was most noted. They never hide it, but it was very much there. So there have been these two parallel traditions going on. One, the modern Sanskritists and the traditional Pundits. Because it is my opinion, but I don't know, I have no any great proofs, etc. But when I met frequently Viswanath Bhattacharya, and we had many discussions on many various topics, I found this modernity in him. Because of his modernity, he was very much against many of the systems, many of the customs of traditional Hindu Samaj. And I knew it. And when he first invited me to deliver some lecture, on many occasions, because of his invitation, I had to go there. And many lectures I delivered in the Bongo Sahitya Samaj. One lecture I chose to speak on modern Vedanta. And when after this lecture, we are returning together, we had a great discussion on our way back to home. There my point was that this modern Vedanta, which has been made very popular since Vivekananda, we had another notion. It is called Nobbo Vedanta. Nobbo Vedanta and modern Vedanta are two completely distinct things. This was my point of study and speech. I said Nobbo Vedanta was born and developed and still continues in the Chatuspati tradition. But in the Sanskrit tradition, this particular Vedanta is not that way distinguished from the other Vedanta, the Vedanta that is being said by me, the Nubbo Vedanta. So he was a man of modern mind. And on this point, we had a great difference between them. But a great point of Viswanath Bhattacharya was that he was very open mouthed, and but he was never bitter. He very much outspoken. Whatever he feels, he could say. He was a courageous person. He lived his beliefs and convictions, and he would straightway say all these things. But I never found him closed in mind. His modernity did not make his mind closed, so he was as much open to accept the alternative view as the traditional view. So often we would discuss and equally openly without mincing words, but ultimately we should come to some sort of understanding. I should not say compromise. He never shifted from his position, nor did I leave my position. But still, we had great affinity between us, both in the scholarly matters and also the ways of living. And so far as is concerned for Bengal, to honor this, I wrote and published one article in his journal, and that was Bangla ke niye Bangali Bhabna. And this was published in this. So in this way, I was very much profited by my association with Bishwanath Bhattacharya. I cannot be conceited enough to say that he at all benefited from his association with me, but he definitely he enjoyed it. And I saw him all the time. He was discussing something. He was discussing Sahitya, and he was a living person, social problems, political problems, and he had opinion about them, and this way he was very much concerned about them. He was affected with this, and he would discuss them. But all the time, he is revolving around when Rabindra Sangeet, Rabindra Sahitya, most favorite of him. And he has a fantastic memory. And from memory, he would recite to us because towards the end of his life, he could not see properly because his eyes was failing. But he has a fantastic memory, and he could recite long passages from his memory. And most of the time, I found that he was absolutely correct all through. So the last thing that I should say, I profited from my association with this person, and I remain respectful to him. I will remain ever respectful till my last breath. Thank you.
So thank you so much, sir. And I must apologize that at very short notice, sir. It is. I beg my pardon that I have consulted you at the very short notice, and sir, and you have agreed to deliver such a distinguished lecture on the man and the scholar Professor Viswanath Bhattacharya was. आपने सर पूज्य गुरु जी के जीवन के कई ऐसे पक्षों को हमारे समक्ष रखा.
But I think I have not taken much time. You said very little time I have.
Yes, sir. No, sir. But your lecture was so fantastic, and you have revealed so many facts that we are totally unaware. और सर हमारे साथ काशी हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय के महामहोपाध्याय आचार्य रेवा प्रसाद द्विवेदी जी के पुत्र हमारे गुरुजी प्रोफेसर सदाशिव कुमार द्विवेदी जी भी जुड़े हैं. सर आपका भी स्वागत. इससे पहले कि मैं आज के अपने अध्यक्ष आदरणीय प्रोफेसर कोराड़ा सुब्रमण्यम जी से निवेदन करूं, मैं सर एक सादर निवेदन करूंगा अपने सदाशिव द्विवेदी सर से कि वो भी कुछ दो शब्द आज के इस अवसर पर पूज्य गुरु जी के स्मारक व्याख्यानमाला के अवसर पर दो शब्द बोलकर हमें अनुग्रहित करें. सर.
वागर्थाविव संपृक्तौ वागर्थ प्रतिपत्तये जगतपितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ. Respected Professor Mukhopadhyay ji and respected chairman of the session, Dr. Anant Ashutosh ji and Dr. Mayank Shekhar ji, and the great scholars who are associated with this lecture. I am considering myself to associate with this lecture series. I happen to be the disciple of Professor Viswanath Bhattacharya ji, and he blessed me always for attaining the best in my life. I did my PhD under his supervision on the manuscripts of Kumar Sambhava, and I saw deeply the way he used to guide his students to put the best out of them. My father, the veteran father, Acharya Professor Reva Prasad Dwivedi, was also his disciple. My father did his PhD under the supervision of Professor Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji when he was working in Dr. Harisingh Gaur University, Sagar. Raghuvanshasya Hemadri Darpane Hemadri Darpanasya Hemadri या टीका वर्तते तस्मिन् अस्ति तेषां शोधकार्यं तस्यां टीकायां तेषां शोधकार्यं वर्तते. Thus, myself and my father both happened to be the disciple of Professor Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji. The biggest thing that Professor Bhattacharya ji, Guru ji, had is that he used to put everything in a very lucid manner. Even the very complex textual lines or texts of Kavya Prakash, of Dhanyalok, or of Rasagangadhar, all these rare texts of Sahitya Shastra, he used to clarify them in a very lucid manner. Once you learn these texts from Guruji, you cannot forget the deep sense inherited in them. This is the best thing that we learned from him, how to present the textual analysis of the Sanskrit poetics. He was a great scholar. He was having the knowledge of, I think, even the contemporary literary traditions also. When we used to sit together with him, he used to make a comparison between the past and the present so deeply that we were astonished to learn from him. This was the talent that my Guruji, my veteran Guruji, Professor Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji had, and I feel quite proud of that I had good opportunities and the blessings, always blessings of Puja Guruji and Mataji both and the entire family. And it is because of his blessings that I have reached to this position in Banaras Hindu University. And we always remember, we keep him in our heart and always try to do best for the institution and for Sanskrit language and Sanskrit Shastras, and especially Sanskrit poetics and the literary tradition. I pay my heartfelt homage to the memories of Professor Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji, my Guruji, and extend pranamas to the great scholars who are joining this session.
थैंक यू सर फॉर योर वंडरफुल वर्ड्स। और सर आपने ही एक बार हमें बताया कि कैसे गुरुजी जब 11वीं शताब्दी के भोजराज विरचित सरस्वती कंठाभरण इस ग्रंथ का जब वो संपादन कर रहे थे 2 टीकाओं के साथ, रत्नेश्वर और जगद्दर, तो सरस्वती कंठाभरण ग्रंथ में व्याकरण शास्त्र का भी विषय है और अलंकार शास्त्र का भी विषय है। यह गुरु जी की ही प्रतिभा का परिणाम था कि उन्होंने इस ग्रंथ का नाम सरस्वती कंठाभरणालंकार करके उसका फिर संपादन किया इन 2 टीकाओं के साथ, रत्नेश्वर और जगद्दर। तो ये उनकी एक मौलिक प्रतिभा का निदर्शन है। अब मैं कार्यक्रम
सरस्वती कंठाभरण नाम के 2 ग्रंथ लिखे भोजराज ने।
अच्छा,
एक
अच्छा,
व्याकरण का और एक काव्य शास्त्र का। तो आप उनमें अंतर कैसे करेंगे? तो गुरु जी ने जब BHU से सरस्वती कंठाभरण छापा इन 2 टीकाओं के साथ, तो उन्होंने उसके साथ अलंकार शब्द जोड़ दिया। तो काशी हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय से जो गुरु जी का एडिशन छपा है उसमें लिखा हुआ है सरस्वती कंठाभरणालंकार। तो इससे डिमार्केशन हो गया कि सरस्वती कंठाभरण नाम का जो व्याकरण का ग्रंथ है वो भिन्न है और अलंकार का ग्रंथ भिन्न है। ये विशेषता थी उसमें। जी
हाँ सर, बिल्कुल। अब मैं कार्यक्रम की शुरू को आगे आदरणीय प्रोफेसर कोराड़ा सुब्रमण्यम जी से निवेदन करता हूं कि वे अध्यक्षीय उद्बोधन कर हमें अनुग्रहित करें। आदरणीय प्रोफेसर कोराड़ा सुब्रमण्यम जी।
ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। I am very much thankful to the Heritage Society and also the Indira Gandhi Institute of Arts and Culture for giving me a chance to just speak, say a few words before you. Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji has had a title that is Mahamahopadhyay. I do have this Mahamahopadhyay, so I do know how difficult it is to achieve such kind of title. And 11 pages or so were sent by my uncle ji to me about Acharya Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji. So I have just had a glance. Just a few words I would like to say. Vishwanath Bhattacharya ji was working on Alankar Shastra extensively. But what many people may not try to analyze is, what is this Sahitya Shastra? Sahitayor Bhavaha Sahityam, that is from Rajashekara's Kavyamimamsa. And if you touch Dhanyaloka, Anandavardhanacharya says Prathamehi Vidwansaha Vyakaranaha. So the Sahitya Shastra has got Vyakarana, I shall expand, as its base. That does not mean that Nyaya, Mimamsa and Vedanta are not there. I mean, Kavyam Yasise Arthakrite Vyavahara Shivetara Kshataye Sajjah Paranirvrataye. That is what Bhattacharya says in Kavya Prakasha. So Sajjah Paranivrati will be there. It is actually a path to moksha. And in Vyakaranam there is one vada called, the concept called Sphatavada. So Sphatavada of Vyakaranas, Anandavardhanacharya wants to make it clear, is the base of the Alankara Shastra. That means when you are talking about a scholar Mahamahopadhyay Vishwanath Bhattacharya, then you have to think about his background, his knowledge of Vyakarana, deep knowledge, profound knowledge of Vyakarana, without which one cannot simply do so many things. He was working deeply on Kalidasa. He was working on Bharata's Natya Shastra. His contribution is there on Dhanyaloka, Kavya Prakash, Mamatacharya, and so many. I have just had a glance at these things. So what kind of scholarship is required to do such a great work? So Bhattacharya ji was a scholar in not only Vyakaranam but also the Nyaya, because all of us know Mahamahopadhyay, how he refuted the Dhani theory and wanted to put under Anumana Pramana and all that. Okay, and also in Sphatavada, both the Vachya and Vyangya, both Dhani, both are called Dhani. That is what is explained by the commentator Abhinava Gupta on Dhanyaloka. So initially, when a person speaks a sentence, Chaitraha Gramam Gachati, for example, let us take. But each one of the letters will disappear. Okay. As soon as this is pronounced, Ashu Vinashitvat Varnanam Yogavajjanna Sambhavati Vishesha. Nevertheless, the listener says, he claims, yes, I got the meaning. How is it possible? If all the letters that are pronounced, okay, are available simultaneously as a single point of time and place, then it is possible that one gets the meaning out of that vacuum. But that is not happening. Nevertheless, a person claims, as soon as he hears the sentence, he says, yes, I understand the Vakyartha, not Varnartha. Varnas do not have meaning, except in some tantras. So, how is it possible? For that matter, the Vyakarnas have to take up the Sphatavada invented by Sphatayana. Sphatayana Rishayar Matam says Nageshna in Sphatavada Grantha. Of course, this is accepted only by yogins, these Alankarikas, and a few others. But Shankaracharya in Devatadhikaranam in Sutra Bhashyam refutes Sphatavada. Even Nayayikas, they don't accept. Of course, the Mimamsakas also don't accept the Sphatavada. But what my Guruji said was that Sphatavada is, scientific, and it has to be accepted. So, following these all the arguments, having in mind, Bhattacharya ji was working on Alankara Shastra, and the books are there to see. But what was his background? How great was Acharya's background? This is just an example to say. So, of course, in Kalidasa's Kavyas, all the Shastras are covered that everybody knows. And Bhavabhuti, or even Bharata's Natya Shastram also touched by Mahamahopadhyay Bhattacharya ji. So, I don't want to take much time. I am very much thankful, although I do not know Bhattacharya ji personally. And I know Professor Rava Prasad Dwivedi ji, because in 1981 he conducted the World Sanskrit Conference. Then I had the, luck of fortune of speaking to him, Rava Prasad Dwivedi ji. So now I thank again the people at the helm of affairs for giving me a chance to just say a few words before you. Dhanyavad.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। अब महामहोपाध्याय आचार्य रेवा प्रसाद द्विवेदी जी का एक ग्रंथ है सतपत्रम, और वहां पर वो बोलते हैं, निगमागम संगतौ सुतौ द्वौ कविता प्रतिभा पुंसमनी प्रसूय प्रवया तपसा याम द्विलेभे कन्याम ताम कवितेति भावयामः। अर्थात कि प्रतिभा रूपी नायिका निगम और आगम दो पुत्रों को जन्म देने के बाद एक कन्या की इच्छा करती है। तपस्या करते करते वह प्रौढ़ हो गई, तब जाकर उसे कविता नामक कन्या की प्राप्ति हुई। ऐसे निगमागम परंपरा के पूजक आचार्य वाहक आचार्य महामहोपाध्याय प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य जी थे। सर, आपने उनके
published Kalidasa's books as a single edition. Still I have it. They gave it free of cost in 1981. Rava Prasad Dwivedi did a lot of service really. And one was all the Kalidasa's books are available in a single volume.
जी जी सर, आपने गुरु जी के कई पक्षों को हमारे सामने बहुत ही कम समय में रखा सर। ए तदर्थ हेरिटेज सोसाइटी व प्रोफेसर विश्वनाथ भट्टाचार्य फाउंडेशन की ओर से हम आपके सदैव आभारी हैं। कार्यक्रम के अंत में मैं श्री आदरणीय श्री योगेंद्र भट्टाचार्य जी से आज के अपने सारस्वत अतिथियों का धन्यवाद ज्ञापन करने के लिए निवेदन करता हूं।
माता जी जुड़ी।
आदरणीय लोगों को मेरा नमस्कार। अपनी माता जी, भाइयों एवं बाकी परिवार के सदस्यों की तरफ से मैं सबको बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं। स्पेशली प्रोफेसर मुखोपाध्याय who took the time out to be the speaker at this virtual conference, Professor Subramaniam for having chaired this evening session, Dr. Ananta Sushos Dwivedi जी, आप पिछले 2-3 साल से हम लोग के साथ जुड़ करके अपना प्लेटफॉर्म भी हमको प्रदान कर रहे हैं। डॉक्टर मयंक शेखर, उन्हीं की वजह से ये होता है। हम लोग बहुत ज़्यादा सहायता नहीं कर पाते हैं। इस साल तो बहुत ही कम समय में उन्होंने आयोजन किया। We were all a bit preoccupied. I was also traveling for the last few days, so could not assist him. डॉक्टर सदाशिव तो खैर हमेशा साथ रहे ही हैं बचपन से ही। प्रज्ञा घोष जी को भी मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। उन्होंने अपनी सुंदर आवाज़ से इस प्रोग्राम को शुरू किया। और मैं तो खैर आप लोग के सामने कुछ कहना मेरे लिए ठीक नहीं होगा, बट यही है कि माय फादर्स ग्रेटेस्ट डिजायर was to disseminate information. He was happiest when fighting with somebody over literature and grammar and alankar. I mean, Sadasiv ji's father, Professor Dwivedi and all, they used to have literally fights about grammar, which I find very, very amazing in today's world, where we normally fight about whose car is bigger and whose TV is bigger. So that was a generation of people who were not at all materialistic, which is what I realize as the days go by. उनमें किसी से कोई ईर्ष्या नहीं थी, किसी वस्तु को लेकर कोई झगड़ा नहीं था, केवल अपने साहित्य को लेकर के ही। और वो भी like Professor Mukhopadhyay said in the beginning that my father was very open-minded. Yes, we know, because he's come from a very traditional household, and while growing up he was like a father to us. तो घर में जो पिता और बच्चों के साथ झगड़ा होता था कि आज हमको सिनेमा जाना है, आज हमको यहाँ जाना है, हमने वो भी देखा है। लेकिन 25-30 साल जैसे हम लोग बड़े होते गए, उनकी विचारधारा भी हम लोग के हिसाब से भी बदल गई। तो ये मेरा एक मानना है कि ब्रॉड माइंडेडनेस उनमें इतना था। और प्रोफेसर मुखोपाध्याय ने एक और बात कही कि वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करते थे। कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग और अंडरस्टैंडिंग में एक विशेष अंतर है। वो दूसरे पक्ष को समझते थे और अगर एक्सेप्ट करना होता था करते थे, नहीं हो पाता था तो नहीं करते थे। कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करते थे क्योंकि बिलीफ्स उस जनरेशन के लोगों की बड़ी तगड़ी थी। अनफॉर्चुनेटली हम लोग थोड़ा सा मटेरियलिस्टिक वर्ल्ड में फंसे हुए हैं, तो हम लोग का बिलीफ का थोड़ा इशू है। एनीवे, मुझे और कुछ नहीं कहना है। मेरा यही कहना है कि पिताजी को इन्फॉर्मेशन डिसेमिनेट करना बहुत अच्छा लगता था। हमें आशा है कि इस तरह से ये 4था साल हम लोग का हो रहा है। अनफॉर्चुनेटली किसी कारणवश से ये फिजिकल इस बार नहीं हो पाया, बट हमें आशा रहेगी कि हर साल अगर जितने ज़्यादा लोग जुड़ें, ताकि उस जनरेशन के जो महापंडित लोग हैं उनसे कुछ हम लोग ज्ञान ले पाएँ। यंगर जनरेशन जो आज इस साहित्य और इस भाषा में लिप्त हैं, उनको भी अगर कुछ ज्ञान प्राप्त होगा तो इससे ज़्यादा बड़ी श्रद्धांजलि मेरे पिताजी को या उनके जो साथ के लोग थे जो हमको सिर्फ पढ़ा के और ज्ञान दे के ही गए हैं, इससे बड़ी और कोई श्रद्धांजलि नहीं होगी। अंत में मैं सबको अगेन नमस्कार करता हूं और धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आपने मूल्यवान समय निकाला इसके लिए। और स्पेशली जो श्रोतागण हमारे साथ YouTube में जुड़े हैं, क्योंकि बिना श्रोता के तो बात करने का कोई फायदा नहीं है। तो उनको भी मैं असंख्य धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आप लोगों ने भी समय निकाल करके, वत्सला जी हों, ज्योत्सना जी हों, सब लोग इस मंच पे आज मिले हैं ताकि कुछ हम लोग बात कर सकें पिताजी के बारे में एवं उन्होंने कैसे अपना जीवन बिताया। धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।
नमस्ते भैया। अंत में पुनः एक बार मैं अपने पूज्य गुरु जी को कोटि कोटि प्रणाम निवेदित करता हूँ, और माता जी भी हमारे साथ जुड़ी हुई हैं, उनको भी मैं कोटि कोटि प्रणाम निवेदित करता हूँ, और आप सभी का मैं धन्यवाद दोनों संस्थाओं की ओर से मैं धन्यवाद अभिज्ञापित करते हुए आज के इस कार्यक्रम को औपचारिक रूप से समाप्ति की अनुमति मांग रहा हूँ। आप लोगों का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एवं आभार।